The N.I.D., a powerful intelligence agency within the U.S. government, the N.I.D. was long controlled by operatives who were jealous of Stargate Command and its control over the Stargate and other alien technologies. A ruthless attitude toward alien cultures eventually brought about a rogue operation inside the N.I.D. halls of power, circumventing the S.G.C. and the law in order to secure advanced weapons and technologies for Earth. In the Stargate universe, the N.I.D. is a U.S. government agency responsible for intelligence operations across many fronts. Their headquarters is in Washington, D.C., along with operations at Area 51 and special ops bases and safe houses throughout the United States. The group has frequently been a thorn in the side of Stargate Command, but eventually, allies inside the N.I.D. worked to root out corruption and restore the agency to its proper role. As a civilian organization, the N.I.D. does not have a place in the chain of command over the top-secret military base inside Cheyenne Mountain. Rather, they are tasked with civilian oversight, reviewing operations, determining alien contacts and technologies that may be beneficial to Earth, and facilitating their transferal to Area 51 for study. The agency has more direct authority at Area 51 itself, where technologies and biologics retrieved from other worlds are studied by experts in many fields. It is not stated in Stargate canon exactly what N.I.D. stands for, but it seems to be something close to National Intelligence Division. Although the N.I.D. is a civilian organization, its leadership has come primarily from the military. Following the promotion of Colonel Kennedy, Colonel Harold Mayborn was elevated to interface with the S.G.C. and to oversee the research and storage of artifacts at Area 51. Mayborn was aggressive to the point of outright hostility, attempting to take refugees from the planet Tolan by force rather than allowing them to be resettled by the Nox. And when Teal'c was infected by the venom of an alien insect, Mayborn ordered his transfer away from the base for scientific study. Soon, it became clear to General George Hammond and SG-1 that the N.I.D. was operating with its own agenda, taking orders from unknown civilian authorities, even to the point of secretly relocating the second Stargate, found in Antarctica, and utilizing it to send their own teams off-world. Among those pulling Mayborn's strings was Senator Robert Kinsey, who was dissatisfied with Hammond and O'Neill's leadership and the pace at which Stargate Command was bearing fruit for Earth, and particularly for the United States and its interests. Kinsey fought to have the S.G.C. defunded and mothballed, and control of the Stargate and off-world missions handed over to the N.I.D. For years, Kinsey kept his fingerprints off the N.I.D.'s questionable actions. Inside the organization, a rogue faction was quietly developing, headed by Colonel Mayborn and taking orders from people like the Senator. The discovery of a second Stargate on Earth gave them the opportunity to begin sending their teams off-world in secret. And what may have started as Black Ops intelligence gathering quickly escalated to outright criminal acts. Believing that the ends justify the means, the rogue agents stole a weather control device from the planet Madrona. They employed a scientist to engineer their own human Goa'uld hybrid in the hopes of getting at the knowledge passed on by the enemy's genetic memory. And they stole technology from Area 51's storage and replaced it with replicas. Eventually, Mayborn and his operatives even established an off-world base of operations. This group worked for months to steal technology from many different worlds, using a mole inside Stargate Command to smuggle smaller devices and specifications back to Earth. They also used a Goa'uld long-range communications device to stay in touch with Colonel Mayborn, who would exploit mission reports from the S.G.C. to give them new orders. These operatives took a beam weapon from P3Y-294 in an operation that left 3 locals dead. They stole technologies belonging to the Tolan, the Asgard, and others, and they disrupted the operations of a defensive weapon called the Sentinel on the planet Latona. After it became evident that many worlds throughout the galaxy were victims of theft and espionage by humans from Earth, the Asgard and the Tolan contacted Stargate Command, notifying them of their intent to sever all ties with Earth. Jack O'Neill convinced Mayborn that he had become disillusioned with the S.G.C. and its failures, and got himself a spot on the rogue team, only to expose the operation and have its membership arrested, and later convicted of high treason. The rogue N.I.D. was cut down, though its roots still ran deep, corrupting the organization. Mayborn evaded arrest and defected to Russia, which had recovered a Stargate from the bottom of the ocean. Senator Kinsey, too, was connected to these efforts to support a Russian Stargate program in order to continue to secure alien technology and subvert the efforts of Stargate Command. After a catastrophic incident, SG-1 was called in to help, and Mayborn was found and arrested. After Mayborn's incarceration, the N.I.D. moved to replace General Hammond, using blackmail to force him to retire. In his place, they had a more aggressive leader installed. Major General Bauer was more receptive to their recommendations, putting people's lives on the line to develop and test a weapon of mass destruction. It was at this point that Jack O'Neill went to the disgraced Harry Mayborn for help. Having been burned by his former colleagues, Mayborn agreed to help find dirt on Senator Kinsey in order to pressure him to reinstate Hammond. Kinsey capitulated, and for years managed to avoid his own criminal implication, until his ambitions took him all the way to the vice presidency. The rogue element of the N.I.D. was not extinguished by O'Neill's exposure of their criminal activities. Sympathetic elements inside the organization simply regrouped, seeking new ways to exploit technologies recovered by the S.G.C. At first, this was in the name of planetary defense, and the repeated threats to the Earth only proved their point. But the agency ultimately answered to politicians, and corrupt politicians like Kinsey answered to wealthy business interests and donors. A secret cabal was formed, known only as the Committee, to dictate the N.I.D.'s actions. They made use of the rogue element, and later of their own spies and paid agents working inside Area 51, to develop and exploit alien technology for their own profit. They found a new man to replace Mayborn at the N.I.D., Colonel Frank Simmons. With his help, they even hijacked Earth's first deep space vessel, Prometheus, out of dry dock, hoping to take it to find a cache of weapons and technology believed to have been left behind by the ancients. After the Prometheus incident, N.I.D. agent Malcolm Barrett was tasked by the White House with rooting out corruption within the agency. Agent Barrett was a straight shooter, a patriot, and a man of integrity, who proved himself an ally to Stargate Command. He worked diligently to identify those sympathetic with the rogue operation and to expose the committee and its illegal activities. But even then, the group simply changed form. Powerful moguls were still able to recruit operatives for their cause, and in the ashes of the committee was born the Trust. With connections to government agencies and corporations around the world, this group was less concerned about profit. They believed that the government had abdicated its duty to protect the planet, and saw it as their responsibility to step in. Believing they were justified in operating above the law, the Trust ordered their operatives to kidnap a civilian and frame Teal'c for murder, in a convoluted effort to coerce Daniel Jackson to translate an ancient text for them. They blackmailed a businessman who was preparing to expose extraterrestrial life to the public. And eventually, the last surviving members who were once a part of the rogue N.I.D. operation began their own military assault on the Goa'uld. After gaining access to a cloaked ship in Earth orbit, they transported the Stargate out of the S.G.C. gate room. They used the gate to deploy rockets armed with symbiote poison to numerous Goa'uld-controlled worlds, indiscriminately killing not only Goa'uld but thousands of Jaffa, including members of the underground resistance movement, and even some Tok'ra operatives. When they were found by SG-1, they fled into deep space. There they came upon the Goa'uld and were likely taken as hosts, who now returned to Earth in an effort to infiltrate the planet's major world governments. The powerful heads of the Trust now found themselves working for the Goa'uld, and many were taken as hosts themselves. Ironically, the group that once had been formed to aggressively protect Earth and its interests became the vehicle of an alien threat that would not have been possible without their actions. For more people, places, and things from the Stargate universe, visit StargateOmnipedia.com. If you want to support Gateworld on YouTube, like this video and leave a comment. Check out this playlist for more videos from the Stargate Omnipedia.